Thank you very much. That certainly is worth switching from discussion among the panelists, I think, to going straight to those of you in the audience who may have some response to some of that. Would you please, as questions arise, if you would wait until the microphone is handed to you so that we can be sure that everyone else can hear your question. Can we start with questions from the audience? Are there points that any of you would like to make? What a passive group.
This lady.
Yes, ma'am. Just one moment. Let me get you a microphone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is not so much a question as a plea. As an ex-journalist, I ought to know about Index on Censorship, and I do not. Would you spend a couple of minutes telling us or me about it, please?
With the greatest of pleasure. It's been around. I mean, it was set up in the Cold War days, really, to pioneer work defending Soviet and other dissidents. In 1972, Stephen Spender was its original founder, and it has had an august set of writers and journalists and others at its helm. I joined it a year and a half ago, having finished for 4 years being editor of the New Statesman and other mainstream news media. And somebody has at the back has some Index flyers which were supposed to be on the chairs, but they are now, or they're going to be shortly. Indexoncensorship.org is the website. We publish a quarterly magazine edited by former BBC journalist Joe Glanville, who's one of the best in the business. It's a fantastic magazine that goes into all issues of free speech. We do country studies. The next issue is about technology. We've got one on censorship and radio that follows shortly afterwards. We have a truly global reach. Half our readers are in the United States. It's a growing organisation. We've got a very strong website. And the thing that we've been most involved in, which has had a lot of publicity in Sunday Times, Guardian, The Economist, Daily Mail, elsewhere over the last 3 months, and around the world, New York Times, Time Magazine, and others have covered it quite copiously, has been our libel reform campaign that we have done in conjunction with another organisation, English Pen. And we produced 10 proposals for reform. Geoffrey was there at the launch, and Ken MacDonald, the former Director of Public Prosecutions, who's one of our trustees, was with us at the launch as well. Our chairman is Jonathan Dimbleby. Those 10 reform proposals have pretty much formed the basis for the debate over the last several months, which has led to a Ministry of Justice working group about which one could and should be sceptical, but something is better than nothing, and there has been movement in a positive direction. Probably 1 or 2 out of 10 is about as good as it's getting, but it's better than it was. And we are just trying to get all the various manifestations of censorship up in lights around the world. As I say, what I call the old-fashioned black and white censorship of out-and-out repression, to the more insidious and more variegated forms of censorship that we've been talking about around libel and also around self-censorship, around the issues that Catherine has been talking about around offence and not wishing ever to rock the boat. So all these different issues. I was on television frequently debating with my old friend Peter Hain, but on the other side of the argument, defending the right of Nick Griffin to appear on BBC's Question Time. And my stock point was exactly as it should be, that you should, the form of free speech that you should most vigorously defend is the free speech of someone whose views you find most obnoxious. And it is that is the true determiner of free speech. So indexoncensorship.org, or I can give you other details afterwards.
Geoffrey, I was very surprised not to hear you say something about the increasing use of prior restraint, which, as an American, prior restraint to speech is almost without exception forbidden by constitutional protections. The use of injunction to prevent someone from appearing or to prevent someone from releasing something. It seems to me, as someone who practiced journalism in America for a long time, to be the ultimate censorship of before someone is even allowed to speak, to require someone else to review it, rather than holding the speaker responsible for the things that he says. Catherine mentioned a lot of things about a number of cases where prior restraint has been practiced not just by governments imposing injunctions, but by prior restraint of other controllers of media on what they are allowed to be published. Isn't prior restraint as great a threat to freedom of speech in this country?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't use the magic words prior restraint, but this is what the Max Mosley case is all about, requiring notice of anyone that you're going to criticize 2 days before. Why? So their lawyers can go to court and get a privacy injunction in this broad definition of privacy, which includes reputation. So that it is, I think, a very serious departure from something that Britain gave to the world. There was a wonderful jurist here, a professor here, Blackstone, who formulated back in the 18th century, he was the Vinerian professor of law at Oxford, the rule against prior restraint. In other words, that if what you say and what you write may be punishable, so long as punishment comes after and not before publication. And this rule against prior restraint went into the American First Amendment, Congress shall make no law. And the Pentagon Papers case was the classic case in the 70s where Nixon could not stop the Pentagon Papers, and the Supreme Court ruled that only if lives were at stake, troop movements in wartime and so forth, that was the only class of material that could be injuncted. And the rule against prior restraint still works in libel cases. You can't get, no one can get an injunction for libel if they indicate that they're going to defend. But this is why there's such everyone who wants to stop the presses is now going for this extended definition of privacy where you can get an injunction. So that's the whole point of the Mosley case. This is the whole danger of these super injunctions that are being given on vaguely private grounds, confidentiality grounds, because not only is the injunction given to stop the publication of the material, which is often newsworthy, but it is being given, there's a further injunction on top of that, so the press can't report the fact that there's been the first injunction. That's called a super injunction, and its rise through the demands of confidentiality and privacy is very worrying. And of course, it's not only the wealthy who have access to this, it's anyone who can get a lawyer to act on this wonderful uplift basis in which lawyers who take up cases against the media and win get twice as much money. And I mean, the senior partners at Carter Rucks and so forth get £400 an hour normally. And when they win, they slug the media for £800 an hour. And that's why there is so much ambulance chasing in this area. But we are seeing the end of the rule against prior restraint because so many people now are getting round it and saying, oh, this isn't libel, this is privacy, this is breach of confidence, and so forth.